This year's MVP race isn't just exciting, it might actually be historic. On one side, we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a rising superstar who's quietly putting together one of the most efficient and complete seasons we've seen since the days of prime Kobe Bryant. On the other, there's Nikola Jokic, the two-time MVP, who some people now argue might be the greatest center of all time. This battle isn't just about stats, it's about how we define the MVP itself. Is it the best player on the best team? Or the player who is most valuable to his team's success? Historically, this debate goes all the way back to 1962 when Bill Russell won MVP over Wilt Chamberlain and Oscar Robertson, despite Wilt averaging 50 points per game and Oscar averaging a triple-double. Russell won because he led the best team. Sound familiar? If we go by that same logic today, the MVP should go to Shai, hands down. Shai is leading the league in scoring, is among the top in net rating, and has taken the Thunder, a team nobody expected to be this dominant, to the top seed in the Western Conference. He's doing this while flirting with the ultra-rare 90/50/40 shooting split and has the most 20, 30, 40, and 50-point games this season. Not only is he efficient, but he consistently steps up in big games. Against top teams, Shai doesn't just show up, he shows out. It's the kind of consistency and fire that makes voters take notice. Even ESPN's Tim Bontemps' latest straw poll had Shai leading with 77 first-place votes, showing that public opinion, and the media, are leaning in his favor. But then there's Jokic. He's having the best season of his career, and that's saying a lot for someone who's already a two-time MVP. He's nearly averaging a triple-double again, ranks in the top 3 in points, rebounds, and assists, and somehow, even his defense, often criticized, is getting love from the analytics crowd. And here's what makes it more impressive. He's doing all this without another all-star on his team. Meanwhile, OKC just saw Jalen Williams selected for his first all-star appearance. So now we're stuck with this impossible choice. Shai is efficient, explosive, and leading a young team to the top. Jokic is historic, consistent, and possibly peaking as the best big man the game has ever seen. No matter who you lean toward, one thing's clear, we're witnessing greatness on both sides. But the fact that it's even close raises a deeper issue. So we've got two generational talents, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic, both making absolutely bulletproof MVP cases. But here's the thing, why does this feel more like a debate about narratives than actual basketball? And that brings us to the real issue, the voting system itself. See, when we ask, who is the MVP? We should be asking, who's been the most impactful, consistent, and dominant player in the league this year? But instead, what we're often really asking is, whose story do the voters like better? And that's the core problem. The MVP award, over the years, has become less about performance and more about politics. Let's rewind. From 1955 to 1980, the MVP award was voted on by NBA players themselves. That's right, the ones who actually play the game decided who the most valuable player was. Now, sure, there were rules. You couldn't vote for yourself or a teammate. But overall, it felt more authentic. The MVP was chosen by people who faced these guys on the court. That all changed in 1980, when voting rights were handed over to the media, writers, broadcasters, analysts. Now, to be fair, the intention wasn't entirely bad. The league wanted to avoid personal grudges interfering with the vote, like players refusing to vote for someone they didn't like. And it came after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had won 6 MVPs in 10 years, which, let's be honest, probably got boring for casual fans. But in fixing one issue, they created a whole new monster. Because media narratives, they shift like the wind. They chase headlines. And most importantly, they get tired. It's called voter fatigue, and it's one of the biggest factors messing with the MVP race today. We saw it in 2023, when Joel Embiid won over Jokic, even though Jokic arguably had the better season.
Why?
Because Jokic had already won 2 straight, and the voters were bored. Just like they were in 1997, when Karl Malone won over Michael freaking Jordan. You think Malone had a better year than MJ? Please. And now in 2024, it's happening again. The media is leaning toward Shai, not just because he's great, but because he's new. Jokic. He's been here. He's done this. He's not flashy. He doesn't sell drama. And let's face it, for many voters, he's just not exciting anymore. But isn't that unfair? We're not talking about an award for most refreshing storyline or breakout personality. We're talking about the most valuable player in the league. And that should mean consistency, dominance, and winning, year after year, even if it's the same guy again. Instead, the award has become a popularity contest. And it's one that's being judged by people who, in many cases, never played a single game of professional basketball. Think about it. Coaches like Greg Popovich and Eric Spoelstra don't get a say. But Kendrick Perkins and talk show hosts do? It's absurd. Even Shaq once said the vote should only be in the hands of Hall of Famers and former players. People who actually understand the game. Because right now, it feels like we're letting a panel of movie critics decide who wins an Oscar in a sport they barely watch. And while the media has its place, creating narratives, telling stories, generating buzz, they shouldn't have complete control over one of the sport's most prestigious awards. Because this year, whether it's Shai or Jokic, one of these guys is going to get robbed, not because they weren't deserving, but because the system is broken. And until we fix how we define value, and who gets to decide it, this won't be the last MVP debate that feels more like a drama series than a basketball discussion. So here we are, every NBA season, we get incredible performances, jaw-dropping stats, and unforgettable moments. But when it's time to crown the league's most valuable player, we're stuck with the same frustrating question. Can we really trust the current system to get it right? Because the truth is, the MVP voting process is broken. We've already seen how media narratives and voter fatigue can influence outcomes. We've seen deserving players get overlooked because of politics, preferences, and plain old boredom. But the real tragedy. This isn't just about one award, it's about legacy. One MVP can define a player's place in history. It can boost contracts, impact Hall of Fame votes, and shape how entire generations remember someone's career. So if we're going to get it wrong, season after season, what are we even doing? Let's talk about how we fix it. Hammer and wrench idea number 1. Bring the players back. Let's start with the obvious. Bring player voting back into the mix. From 1955 to 1980, the MVP was decided by the ones who mattered most, the players themselves. They knew what it meant to guard someone for 40 minutes. They knew who dominated in ways the box score didn't always show. And most importantly, they weren't afraid to reward greatness, even if it wasn't flashy. Look at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He won 6 MVPs in an era when the players voted. Why? Because he was the best. Simple as that. And if the concern is bias, like players not voting for rivals, we already had rules back then. No voting for yourself. No voting for teammates. And even if that isn't perfect, is it really worse than what we have now? Think about it. Would Kobe have voted for LeBron? Maybe not. But at least it would have come from a competitive place, not from some analyst chasing engagement online. Hammer and wrench idea number 2. Add coaches to the equation. You know who's criminally left out of the MVP vote? Head coaches. You're telling me Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra, Steve Kerr, guys who study the game obsessively and spend hours game planning against the league's best players, they don't get a vote? But media personalities with hot takes and Twitter followings do? That makes no sense. If you want a vote that's both informed and fair, coaches have to be involved. They've seen every play. They know the matchups. They've watched film for hours trying to stop guys like Shai and Jokic. Their perspective should be required, not excluded. Hammer and wrench idea number 3. Hall of Famers and retired legends. Shaquille O'Neal once said something that hit hard. He suggested limiting the MVP vote to 50 Hall of Famers and 50 retired players. That's it. No outside noise. No Twitter trends. Just the opinions of people who've lived the game, breathed the game, and dominated it. These are players who know what it takes to be great, and more importantly, to sustain that greatness over a season. They're not wowed by one viral highlight. They know what consistent, night-in night-out value looks like. Imagine a voting panel made up of people like Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, Dwayne Wade, Paul Pierce, people who faced legends and were legends themselves. It wouldn't be perfect. Nothing ever is. But it would be way more credible than what we have now. Hammer and wrench idea number 4. Hybrid voting model. Let's be realistic. The media isn't going away. They're part of the league's business model. But what if we balanced the equation? Split the vote like this. 1.4% media. 2.3% players. 3.2% coaches. 4.1% Hall of Famers. Now you've got a system that values performance, expertise, and real-life basketball knowledge, not just headlines. It wouldn't eliminate all bias, but it would spread it out. One group couldn't hijack the narrative. Voter fatigue wouldn't matter as much if the coaches and players were still giving Jokic his credit. Balance scale, because at the end of the day, the MVP is more than just a trophy. It's a symbol of excellence. A recognition of greatness. A moment in time when we say, this guy was the best basketball player on the planet this season. So when we let the system become a sideshow, when the award becomes about who has the better storyline, or who hasn't won yet, or who's more marketable, we're not just disrespecting the players. We're disrespecting the game itself. SGA and Jokic are playing at all-time levels. Either one deserves the award, that's not the issue. The issue is that we're trusting a broken system to decide between them. And maybe this year we get lucky. Maybe the voters get it right. But we shouldn't have to hope. It's time to rebuild the system. Not just for Shai. Not just for Jokic. But for every player past, present, and future who steps on the court chasing greatness, and deserves to have it recognized the right way.